The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the open fields, painting the earth in hues of gold and burnt orange. In the distance, a figure moved with slow, deliberate steps, each one a heavy reminder of the burden she carried in her heart. It was a quiet part of the world, a pocket of stillness that seemed almost sacred. But today, everything felt heavy. She was kneeling beside a freshly dug hole, and tears glistened on her cheeks, catching the last rays of light as they fell from her eyes. It was a small grave, just big enough for the little body she cradled in her arms. The gentle breeze carried a hint of wildflowers and earth, but all she could smell was the unmistakable scent of loss. Her dog, Rusty, had been more than just a pet. He was family, a steadfast companion through stormy days and sunny afternoons. She could still hear his playful barks, a joyful sound that punctuated her days. But the day had come when those barks faded into silence, and all that was left was the emptiness of a house filled with memories. Digging a grave alone felt right somehow. It was her way of honoring him, her own personal farewell. But losing someone is never easy, no matter what form it takes. As the shovel scraped against the soil, her heart ached with each clump of dirt. She stopped for a moment, taking a breath to steady herself, clenching her fists around the wooden handle, willing the tears to stay at bay. That's when she heard the unmistakable sound of boots dragging through the grass, crunching against the dried earth. A figure emerged from the trees, tall and broad. His silhouette sharpened in the waning light, a cowboy, with sun-kissed skin and a weathered hat tipped low over his eyes, casting a shadow across his face. His voice cut through the silence, deep like the valley itself. Her first reaction was anger, a flame sparked by the sudden disruption of her grief. "I can do it myself," she snapped, her words sharp like the tip of her shovel. He studied her for a brief moment, noting the tremor in her hands and the tears that streaked her dirt-smudged face. "Looks like you could use some help," he replied simply, not backing down. It felt intrusive, this unsolicited help. But there was something about him, a steady calm about his presence, that made her pause. The weight of her sorrow pressed against her chest, and for the first time she considered sharing this moment with someone else. After a long pause, she nodded, turning her gaze back to the small grave, wrestling with the storm inside her. He stepped closer, removing his hat and revealing a kind face, etched with lines that told stories of life lived out in the open air. "I lost my dog once," he said softly, almost reverently. The words hung heavy in the air, tethering them in a shared space of grief. It was an unspoken bond, a gentle thread connecting their hearts in a way she hadn't anticipated. With a quiet determination, he grabbed the shovel from her hands, his movements confident as he sunk it into the earth. As he worked, she watched him, captivated by the way he wielded the tool with ease, transforming her pain into something tangible. The weight of sorrow began to feel slightly lighter, as if he was lifting some of the burden off her shoulders. "His name was Tex," he continued while digging, the rhythm of his words soothing like a lullaby. "He was a stubborn little guy, thought he could take on the world even when he couldn't." As he spoke, she could almost see Tex, a bouncing bundle of energy with bright eyes and a scruffy coat, running in circles, chasing the wind. Her heart softened at the notion of this cowboy's loss. The realization that they both felt the same pain anchored her, drawing her closer to him, weaving together their narratives of love and loss. "But you're doing it right," he assured her, pausing to look directly into her eyes. "Being here for him, saying goodbye in your own way." The earth began to give way beneath the weight of the shovel, and soon he handed it back to her. This act, simple yet profound, was a bridge between their separate worlds. It felt like a ritual, like they were honoring Rusty and Tex together, binding their souls against the backdrop of sadness. As she dug alongside him, the striking reality of the moment wrapped around them. It was quiet out there, just the sound of their breathing, punctuated by the rhythmic scrape of metal against dirt. And with each handful of earth that fell away, memories of the joyful times they shared began to resurface. A wagging tail, the sound of paws against the hardwood floors, and laughter echoing through the rooms. Finally, after what felt like both an eternity and a fleeting moment, the whole was ready. She took a deep breath, looking down at Rusty, her heart trembling. He had taught her about love and loyalty, and letting him go felt like losing a piece of herself. The cowboy knelt beside her and gently helped her lower Rusty into the ground. It felt so final, so heartbreaking, as she felt the weight of the world settle upon her shoulders again. But instead of retreating into her grief once more, something about the cowboy's presence sparked a flicker of hope. He asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if even speaking Rusty's name required reverence. She nodded, swallowing hard. "Rusty, you were my best friend. You understood every part of me, even when I struggled to understand myself. I'll miss you." Her words broke like waves crashing against the shore. Each syllable carried a piece of her heart with it, floating into the twilight. The cowboy remained still, giving her the space to grieve, but she could feel him beside her, a steadfast anchor. When she finished, he took a moment before speaking, his eyes lingering on the little dog nestled in the earth. "Tex taught me about loyalty, about strength, and how to enjoy the little things. Always find joy in a sunny day, a cool breeze." As the last rays of sunlight dipped beneath the horizon, the magic in the air became palpable. They began to cover Rusty with earth-small, tentative shovels full of hope mixed with sorrow, so carefully laying him to rest. Each clump of soil felt heavy with their shared memories, and when the last of the dirt was placed, it was as if the world breathed. The emptiness in her heart didn't vanish, but it was now shared. The cowboy stepped back, a respectful distance away, allowing her the moment she needed. They stood side by side, gazing down at the small grave, both lost in the memories of lives intertwined with the souls they had loved. The evening air grew cooler, wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. As darkness settled over the land, stars began to peek through the clouds, winking down with an otherworldly glow. "I didn't think I'd need help today," she finally admitted, her voice cracking ever so slightly. He turned to her, a kind smile softening his rugged features. With that, a profound understanding blossomed between them, rooted in the shared experience of love and loss. Moments turned into hours, their conversation blending seamlessly between laughter and tears. They spoke of their dogs, their lives carved by the paths they chose, and the few things that truly made them feel alive. In the world beyond their grief, it was as if time stood still. They found solace in one another's stories, a rare light piercing through the clouds of despair. Together, they observed the night sky, and in that shared solitude, they realized even in loss, there's space for connection, for healing. Eventually, she turned to him, her heart feeling just a fraction lighter. She asked curiously, a hint of warmth creeping back into her voice. "Mostly I ride, sometimes I help folks with their cattle," he replied, glancing toward the horizon. "But whenever I can, I help those who have lost something they loved." A silence settled over them, again comfortable, familiar, orchestral in its nature, as they contemplated the beauty of shared grief. The cowboy looked at her, a twinkle in his eye reflecting resolve. "And you?" "I guess I'll keep going," she confessed, a soft smile beginning to replace the heavy sadness etched on her face. "Exactly," he affirmed, nodding. "Keep moving." As the stars scattered across the sky, she felt a flicker of hope take root, nurtured by their shared connection. The grief would linger, but it didn't have to define her. And the cowboy, ever the silent guardian, nodded solemnly beside her, a steadfast presence in her journey forward as the night deepened. In that moment, she understood something profound. Grieving could be shared, and healing began when hearts intertwined, even briefly, in the most unexpected ways. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the night air, feeling the world shift around her. She wasn't alone anymore. The sun was hesitant to set, lingering on the horizon, stretching shadows across the grassy fields. It was a quiet afternoon, and the world felt heavy with untold stories. In the heart of that tranquil landscape, a figure knelt beside a freshly dug hole, a small spade gripped tightly in her hand. She was fighting against the finality of this moment, tears welling in her eyes as she stared down at the lifeless body resting on a blanket of soft, brown earth. It was more than just a dog. It was her companion, her confidant, the one who had licked her wounds and chased away her shadows. Rusty had been beside her through thick and thin, yet now he was gone, leaving a gaping hole in her heart. As she scooped dirt from the sides of the hole, each clump felt like an anchor pulling her deeper into grief. The shovel scraped against the earth, echoing like a mournful song. She paused for a moment, taking a shaky breath as she tried to gather herself. The warmth of the sun illuminated the sadness on her face, but for her, it felt like the world had grown dimmer. The voice broke through the silence like a clap of thunder, startling her. She turned to see a cowboy standing at the edge of the clearing, tall with a broad frame, a wide-brimmed hat casting shadows across his rugged features. Dust covered his jeans and his boots looked like they'd walked 1,000 miles. "I can do it myself," she replied, maybe too sharply. Anger bubbled beneath her surface, an unexpected tide sweeping through her grief. This was her moment, her goodbye, and yet here he was, a stranger intruding upon her sorrow. The cowboy didn't flinch. He studied her for a moment, eyes softening with understanding. "I can see you're hurting. Let me help you," he said gently. There was an honesty in his voice that brought her a strange kind of comfort, like sunlight peeking through storm clouds. She hesitated. Part of her wanted to wave him off, to keep this moment sacred, but another part, a small, aching part, considered his offer. She was exhausted, the weight of sorrow pressing heavily on her chest. Maybe she didn't have to shoulder it alone. With a reluctant nod, she handed him the shovel, feeling the weight transfer from her hands to his. His grip was confident, and as he began to dig, she watched him closely, captivated by the way he worked. Each scoop of earth was deliberate, methodical, as if he were performing a solemn ritual, honoring lives gone too soon. His name was Rusty, she found herself saying, the words spilling out before she could stop them. He loved to chase squirrels and bark at the mailman. The cowboy paused, looking up from his work. "Sounds like he was quite the personality," he replied, a hint of a smile breaking through the grief that had settled over them. As he dug deeper, she felt a strange bond forming, a connection built on shared pain. It was as if each shovel full of dirt pulled at the threads of their lives, weaving them together in unexpected ways. "When I lost my dog, it felt like a part of me went with him," the cowboy confessed. "Tex had a way of filling a room with joy, just like Rusty must have for you." His words struck a chord deep within her, resonating with the unspeakable ache pooling in her heart. There was power in vulnerability in the act of sharing grief. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not just a stranger but a fellow traveler navigating the same storm. They worked in silence for a moment, the tension of the past few minutes dissolving with each rhythmic scrape of the shovel. The sun began to dip lower, casting a warm glow on the earth, almost like nature was trying to wrap them in comfort. She asked, curiosity breaking through her sadness. He chuckled softly, a sound that felt like sunlight dancing on water. "I ride these parts, helping out folks who need it." Each scoop of dirt felt significant now, a testament to their shared stories. She fought back tears as she realized the kindness of this stranger. Who would have thought that her moment of despair would be met with compassion? As the last bit of soil fell away, the cowboy stepped aside, allowing her space to say her final goodbyes. She knelt beside Rusty, her fingers brushing against his fur one last time. "You were my rock," she whispered, her voice trembling. The cowboy stood nearby, respectful and silent, as if honoring the moment. It wasn't just the act of burying a dog. It was about acknowledging the love that would linger long after the grave was filled. He asked softly, and she nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. The cowboy approached the small grave, his presence warm and steady. Rusty was more than just a pet. He was a friend, a companion who brought light into a world that can sometimes feel cold and empty. He taught us about love, joy, and the simple pleasures of life. His voice, strong yet tender, resonated within her, echoing the love Rusty had shared with her. The emotional weight of their words seemed to solidify their connection, bridging the gap between loss and healing. They stood there for a moment, basking in the glow of shared memories and the beauty of connection. It felt as if the world tilted just slightly, as if it recognized the importance of what had transpired. Finally, the cowboy began to fill the grave, gently placing soil over Rusty, a delicate farewell. With each handful, she felt both the pain of loss and a sense of relief, as if Rusty was now at peace. When the last bit of dirt was placed, her heart ached, yet there was also a flicker of hope. The cowboy handed her the shovel and stepped back, allowing her to place the final stone. "This is for you, Rusty," she murmured, placing a small rock with the word love etched upon it atop the mound. As they both stepped away, the cowboy turned to her. You did good today, you know. She met his gaze, feeling a small smile break through her sorrow. Sometimes we just need someone to lean on, even when we don't realize it, he replied, tipping his hat back slightly. The sun finally dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in breathtaking colors of purple, pink, and gold, a captivating reminder of the beauty of life in the face of loss. In that moment, she felt lighter, the burden on her heart easing with the setting sun. He asked suddenly, gesturing to his horse tethered nearby. Her heart raced at the invitation, a curious mix of excitement and apprehension. The journey ahead felt uncertain, but she knew she didn't have to face it alone anymore. Sure, I'd like that, she replied, a newfound determination in her voice. As she mounted the horse behind him, a surge of unexpected freedom coursed through her veins. The world around them felt alive, the whispers of the wind carrying away the heaviness that had settled on her shoulders. They rode into the evening, the landscape flashing by like a beautiful mural painted in broad strokes, fields of wildflowers, the fading light dancing across the horizon. In that moment, the pain of loss transformed into a celebration of life, each beat of the horse's hooves echoing the rhythm of healing. As they traveled, they exchanged stories about their lives, their failures, and the things that made them smile. Laughter began to break through the shadows, a reminder that joy could exist even amidst grief. I never thought I would meet someone like you today, she admitted, her heart swelling with gratitude. He replied, glancing back at her with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. As the stars emerged one by one in the night sky, they continued to ride, discovering that even in the darkest of times, connections could be forged in the depths of sorrow. Finally, they approached her home, the familiar silhouette of the house standing against the backdrop of a twinkling sky. She felt a bittersweet ache as reality rushed back in. Thank you, she breathed, feeling overwhelmed by the unexpected turn her day had taken. The cowboy nodded, a knowing smile on his face. Remember, it's okay to lean on others. We all need a little help sometimes. With those parting words, he tipped his hat and rode off into the night, a lone figure against the vast expanse of the darkened fields, a reminder that the journey of healing would continue. She stood there for a moment, watching him disappear into the distance, heart full as she turned to face her home. Rusty was gone, but the love they shared would never fade. As the stars glittered overhead, she knew she was ready to step forward, embracing a world painted with both light and shadow, love and loss, a world where new beginnings awaited. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the open fields, but in Emma's heart, the world felt colorless. She knelt in the dirt, hands trembling as she clutched a small spade. Just 20 feet away, a familiar figure lay serene and still, a once vigorous ball of fur now reduced to a memory. Rusty had filled her life with joy and laughter, and now that brightness was snuffed out, leaving only grief. As she dug into the earth, each clump of dirt felt impossibly heavy, like her heart. The rhythmic scrape of the spade against the soil echoed the quiet chaos inside her, a soundtrack for her farewell. She fought back tears, trying to stay strong, to honor him with this final act of love. How could something so small feel like such a monumental task? Every scoop was a struggle against more than just the earth. It was a struggle against the waves of sorrow threatening to drown her. Memories of Rusty's joyful barks and soft, furry face flickered through her mind like a slideshow of better times. A sudden gust of wind stirred the air, and she paused, blinking against the tears that filled her eyes. She didn't want anyone to see her like this. That's when she heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate, crunching through the grass. Startled, she looked up to find a tall figure approaching. A cowboy, worn and rugged, dressed in faded jeans and a wide-brimmed hat. His presence filled the space around her with an unexpected intensity. He asked, his voice deep and calm, cutting through the weight of sorrow hanging in the air. "I can do it myself," she snapped, anger bubbling up within her as if the intrusion had ignited her grief. This was her moment, her way of saying farewell, and she didn't need a stranger digging into her private pain. He stepped closer, his eyes softening as they locked onto hers. It was a mix of determination and empathy that stopped her sharp retort in its tracks. Emma hesitated. This was deeply personal, Yet his gaze held something that pulled her closer, as if he understood in a way that transcended words. Maybe she didn't have to shoulder this pain alone. With a reluctant sigh, she handed him the shovel. The transfer felt significant, like passing off a piece of her heart. The cowboy took it with a steady grip, and as he began to dig, the tension in her shoulders eased just a fraction. He asked, digging into the earth with a rhythm that felt almost meditative. "Rusty," she replied, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Rusty." "Sounds like he was a good dog," he said, pausing briefly to meet her eyes. She nodded, her heart tightening at the thought of his goofy antics and warm cuddles. As they worked together, the ground began to shift between them. Each scoop of dirt felt like a joint effort in unearthing not just Rusty's body, but the emotional weight they both carried. The cowboy continued to dig, sweat beading on his forehead, but he never faltered, embodying a stillness that stirred something deep within Emma. Emma asked, breaking the silence, a curious mix of compassion and longing flooding through her. "Yeah," he replied without hesitation. "A while back. His name was Tex. He had a knack for getting into trouble, but he never strayed far." She could see the flicker of nostalgia dance across his features, and oddly enough, it comforted her. It brought her closer to understanding the bond they shared, two strangers navigating the same troubled waters of loss. Sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows, and the emotional landscape shifted. She watched him, fascinated by how gently he moved the earth. With each passing moment, her anger began to fade, replaced by an unexpected gratitude. "Thank you for helping me," she said, her voice steadier now. "This feels..." The cowboy paused, nodding in silent acknowledgement. "Sometimes it just takes a little help." They continued working in tandem, the silence now heavy with understanding instead of discomfort. Each scoop of dirt transformed their isolation into shared sorrow, no longer alone in their grief. Finally, they reached the depth they needed, and the cowboy deepened the hole with careful precision. He asked, looking at her with a mixture of tenderness and respect. Tears threatened again as she knelt beside Rusty. She gently ran her fingers through his fur one last time, feeling the warmth of a love now frozen in time. "You were my heart," she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of her grief. "Rusty was one lucky dog," the cowboy said softly, kneeling beside her. With a nod of determination, she stepped back, allowing him to help lower Rusty into the earth. As they laid him down, her heart ached, but in that silence, she felt a sense of peace begin to settle over her. The cowboy filled the hole with earth, each handful reverberating with connection, a solemn farewell transforming into something akin to hope. When the last shovelful was placed, she stepped back. They both stood in silence, the setting sun casting a golden glow over the small grave. It felt like a breath from the universe, a reminder that in every ending there is a possibility for new beginnings. "Thank you," she said after a moment, her voice steadier now. His gaze lingered on the grave, filled with understanding. "You honored him well?" she asked, wanting to know more about this stranger who had become her unlikely ally in a moment of darkness. "I ride these lands, help folks when I can. Today felt like one of those days," he replied, a gentle smile breaking his serious demeanor. "It's funny how life brings people together when they least expect it," she remarked, a hint of warmth back in her tone. "Life has a way of surprising us," he said with a thoughtful chuckle, his eyes gleaming as he stood up. He brushed off his jeans, and she couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of strength return to her spirit. For the first time since Rusty had passed, she felt the heaviness retreat, replaced by a seemingly simple yet profound realization. It was okay to grieve, but it was also okay to find connection on the other side of loss, especially when life felt unbearably lonely. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in twilight, the cowboy glanced back at her. "You want to ride with me?" A rush of excitement tingled through her. "Really?" With newfound energy, Emma mounted the horse behind him, the warmth of his body radiating through the chill of the evening air. As they trotted away from the grave, the cloak of sorrow slowly began to lift, replaced by a thrill she hadn't felt in ages. The world around them transformed as they rode, the open land unveiling itself in all its glory. Fields stretched endlessly, infused with vibrant colors as the sun continued to falter. They moved as one, the rhythm of the horse's hooves echoing through the quiet countryside, and she felt a bond forming, a connection strengthened by shared experiences of loss and healing. "You know," she said after a while, her breath visible in the cool air, "I thought I would be alone today." "Sometimes we close ourselves off when it gets hard," he mused, guiding the horse down a narrow path lined with wildflowers. His words resonated deeply, threading through her thoughts as they rode through the twilight. With every step, the weight of sadness began to ease further, and she found herself laughing again, the joy of life reawakening inside her. At last, they reached her small house nestled at the end of a dirt road, a sense of home washing over her. They dismounted, and as Emma turned to thank him, she felt a flutter of something new, a sense of hope intertwined with healing. "Thank you for today," she said earnestly, her heart full. He turned to her, his expression softening. "You've got a strength inside you that's ready to shine." As he walked back toward his horse, a sense of gratitude swelled within her. She called after him. He turned, tipping his hat, an easy smile curling at the corners of his mouth. "I'll be around." With that, he rode off, a lone silhouette framed against the backdrop of a blossoming night sky. Emma stood watching him disappear, the stars beginning to twinkle above her, a reminder that light can emerge even in the darkest of moments. Turning back to her home, she felt the gentle ache of loss but also newfound courage bubbling up inside her. Rusty would always be a part of her story, but now it was time to write the next chapter, one filled with hope and connection, where she would carry his spirit forward, sharing the love he had given her with the world. Walking into her house, she felt lighter than she had in days, the shadows retreating further into the corners of her heart. It wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to embrace life once more, one day at a time. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced across the uneven ground. Emma knelt beside a freshly dug grave, her heart heavy with an ache that seemed to swallow the world around her. Just beyond the mound of earth lay Rusty, her loyal dog who had filled her days with unconditional love and joy. The weight of loss pulled at her as she paused, staring at the spot where she would lay him to rest. Every clump of dirt she moved felt monumental. Each time the shovel struck the earth, it echoed the finality of the moment, a harsh reminder that this was it. No more wagging tail, no more warm cuddles at night. A single tear slid down her cheek and splashed onto the ground. The sight of her beloved companion, now lifeless, felt surreal, a heart-wrenching reality that she didn't want to face. As the churning of emotions threatened to overwhelm her, the sound of footsteps broke through the heavy silence. She looked up, startled to see a figure approaching from the distance, a cowboy, tall and rugged, standing confidently under the fading sun. His hat shaded his face, casting a shadow that concealed the expression beneath. Dirt and wear marked his jeans, a testament to a life lived in the open air. He called out, the warmth in his voice cutting through the chill of her grief. She shot back, the anger rising before she could contain it. This was her moment, her sorrow, and she felt an urge to protect it fiercely. "Looks to me like it's a heavy load," he replied, stepping closer, his calm demeanor palpable even amidst her storm of emotions. There was a kindness in his eyes, softening the edges of her defensiveness. Emma hesitated, the tight knot in her chest slowly uncoiling. She glanced back at Rusty's still form, the helplessness of the situation settling deeply within her. Maybe this stranger could lighten the load, even if just a little. With a resigned sigh, she handed him the shovel. The transfer felt both significant and vulnerable, as if she were relinquishing control over her grief. The cowboy accepted it without question and began to dig, the sound of metal against earth filling the void of silence. He asked, breaking the stillness and allowing her a moment of escape from her sorrow. "Rusty," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "Sounds like he had quite the spirit," he said, his eyes focused intently on the ground, but there was a hint of understanding in his tone. Her heart tightened as memories poured in. Rusty chasing after squirrels, his ecstatic barks, and the way his gentle eyes seemed to understand her every word. "He was more than just a dog. He saved me during some of my darkest days," she confessed, the vulnerability of sharing her pain bringing a tear to her eye. The cowboy paused and looked up at her, the sun catching the edge of his hat. "I lost my dog a few years back. Name was Tex. had a stubbornness about him, but he was a good friend. A sense of connection flickered between them, a shared acknowledgement of the void left by the creatures who had loved them without judgment. As he dug, she found herself sharing more stories, how Rusty would curl up on the couch, stubbornly refusing to move even when asked. Laughter bubbled up despite her sorrow, and for a moment they both forgot the heaviness of loss. The sun dipped lower in the sky, bathing the landscape in hues of orange and purple. As they worked together, the faucet of grief began to ease. It wasn't just about burying Rusty. It was about celebrating his life, feeling that love poured from them both into every handful of dirt they moved. After what felt like both an eternity and a fleeting moment, they finally reached the depth needed for the grave. Emma knelt beside Rusty's lifeless body, her heart aching anew. She couldn't wrap her mind around the reality that he wouldn't be there to greet her at the door anymore. The cowboy asked gently, his voice a soothing balm amid her turmoil. She took a deep breath, looking down at Rusty one last time. "You were my heart," she whispered, her fingers brushing against his fur, feeling the warmth that was now just memory. The cowboy stood by her side, his presence steady and reassuring. With the utmost care, they lifted Rusty gently, cradling him as they laid him into the earth. The act felt sacred, as if they were honoring not just his body but the spirit that filled their lives with joy. As they covered him with soil, each scoop felt cathartic. The cowboy worked with an ease that belied the emotional weight of the moment, his movements careful and respectful. She felt the tears cascading down her cheeks now, but they started to carry a release along with the sorrow, an acknowledgement of what had been lost, but also of what might come next. The last bit of dirt landed with a soft thud, and Emma stepped back to take it all in. They stood in silence, the fading light casting long shadows over the freshly turned earth. It felt both overwhelming and serene, as if Rusty had found his peace. "He was a good dog," she said, her voice trembling. The cowboy met her gaze, a solemn expression on his face. "You gave him that." A silence enveloped them, thick with unspoken truths and shared sorrows. In that moment, Emma felt not just sadness but a sense of release, a feeling she hadn't anticipated. The cowboy's understanding was a lifeline, anchoring her during a storm of grief. "Thank you for being here today," she said quietly. "Sometimes we just need someone to lean on, whether it's in grief or in life," he replied simply, his words hanging in the air between them, echoing with truth. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of twilight, Emma felt a flicker of something new within her hope. It was tentative but present, a reminder that even in the depths of sorrow, there could be moments of beauty and connection. She asked, her curiosity piqued. "I try to," he replied, his voice rich with experience. "Riding through these lands, I often find myself in places where people need a hand or just a listening ear." She looked into his eyes, finding understanding in his gaze. "It takes a special kind of person to do what you do," she acknowledged. He shrugged, brushing off the compliment with a modest chuckle. "You'd be surprised." As they turned to leave the grave behind, Emma felt lighter, her heart beginning to mend with each step. The weight of sadness hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted, broken open by empathy and connection. She asked, excitement bubbling up as the distraction offered her a reprieve. "Whenever I can," he replied, a grin breaking through. "There's something freeing about it." She nodded, imagining the thrill of riding, of feeling the rush of wind against her face. His eyes sparkled with amusement. "I'd be happy to show you," he replied. Beneath the twilight sky, they mounted the horse, and Emma felt a rush of warmth, as if life was slowly nudging her back, like a gentle hand guiding her forward. The horse moved beneath her, strong and steady, and as they began to trot, the landscape unfolded in a breathtaking panorama. Fields stretched as far as the eye could see, bathed in the glow of fading sunlight. Despite her loss, she felt a flicker of excitement bloom within her. The cowboy guided the horse with ease, leading them down winding paths lined with wildflowers, and for the first time in days, she felt free. It was as if every beat of the horse's hooves echoed a promise, a road ahead filled with possibilities. "I can see why you love it out here," Emma admitted, her hair fluttering in the wind. "It's peaceful," he replied, the wind carrying his voice like a gentle whisper. The ride became a bittersweet communion, each moment stitching together the threads of resilience that had begun to weave anew. The pain was still there, of course, lurking beneath the surface, but it no longer felt like an insurmountable weight. It was a part of her story, a chapter that could coexist with new beginnings. "I never expected to find connection today," Emma said, her voice rich with contemplation. He usually reserved his words, yet there was wisdom in his eyes. Grief can feel isolating, but it doesn't have to be. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they ventured further into the warm embrace of the night, the stars beginning to twinkle above. Emma felt a sense of gratitude wash over her, the kind that seeps into your bones after a long day. In the aftermath of loss, there is space to redefine what hope looks like. Eventually, they made their way back to her small house. As they dismounted, a gentle quiet hung in the air, leaving room for reflection. Emma turned to him, determination etched across her face. "I don't want to say goodbye." The cowboy smiled, a knowing light in his eyes. "You don't have to say goodbye yet." As he mounted his horse to ride off, Emma felt a pang of longing but also a sense of resolution. "Thank you for today. Remember, it starts with you," he said, tipping his hat, a small smile still dancing on his lips. And with that, he was gone, a silhouette fading into the night, leaving her to contemplate the breadth of emotion she had felt so intensely throughout the day. Emma found herself standing alone at her doorstep, the last light of day flickering like hope in her soul. Watching the stars emerge one by one, she felt Rusty's presence, not defined by loss but by love. She wasn't just burying a dog, she was cultivating the space for love to grow anew, ready to embrace whatever came next. She turned back inside, the warmth of her home wrapping around her like a soft blanket. Life would go on, but pieces of Rusty would remain, woven into her heart like the threads of a cherished tapestry. Today had been a beginning, a reminder that even in the depth of loss, healing was possible, and sometimes all it took was a stranger and a shovel to help light the way. Emma knew she would carry forward, finding joy where she could and honoring memories that would never fade. In the dance between grief and hope, she began to see the beauty in moving forward. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm orange glow over the open fields, but Emma felt nothing but a chilling emptiness within her. She knelt beside a freshly dug grave, hands gripping the spade tightly as tears streamed down her cheeks. There, just a few feet away, lay Rusty, the golden retriever who had been her loyal companion for years. His once vibrant spirit was now silenced, leaving her heart aching and heavy. Each scoop of dirt felt like a betrayal, a reminder of the finality that loomed. She couldn't shake the feeling of dread as she severed the earth, her breath coming in short gasps. This was her moment to say goodbye, yet it felt unbearably isolating. The cool breeze swept around her, but all she felt was the warmth of loss enveloping her like a suffocating blanket. She paused for a moment, blinking against the moisture in her eyes. She had hoped to bury him in peace, to honor him in her own way. Rusty had been more than a dog. He had been her confidant, her laughter, and her unyielding supporter through life's tumultuous highs and lows. Now, the ground felt like a chasm that threatened to consume her. But just then she heard footsteps crunching through the grass. Startled, she looked up to see a figure approaching, the silhouette of a cowboy, tall and rugged against the setting sun. He wore worn jeans and a wide-brimmed hat that shaded his face, yet she could see the kindness in his demeanor. He called out, his voice deep and calm. "I can do this myself," she snapped, the anger rising within her like a flood, uninvited but startlingly familiar. She didn't want his help. She didn't want anyone to see her like this, vulnerable, exposed, consumed by grief. But the cowboy didn't flinch. He merely took a step closer, his eyes capturing hers with a look that was reassuring instead of judgmental. "I can see you're hurting. It might help to have someone to lean on," he offered softly. Emma hesitated, the tension of the moment hanging thick in the air. Could she allow a stranger to intrude on such an intimate farewell? Yet as she looked back at Rusty, the weight of solitude pressed harder against her heart. She was tired of carrying the pain alone. Finally, she nodded, feeling a flicker of relief wash over her as she handed him the shovel. She watched as he stepped beside her, his grip sure and steady. He began to dig, and she felt an unexpected sense of solidarity taking root during the act. Each scoop of dirt pulled them closer together, transforming sorrow into shared purpose. The cowboy asked, breaking into the rhythm of their work. "Rusty," Emma replied, her voice catching slightly. "He was my best friend." "Rusty," the cowboy repeated thoughtfully, the name hanging in the air like a silent prayer. "Sounds like he had a good life. Their family, you know." His words struck a chord deep within her. She could feel her defenses slowly crumbling little by little. "He was always there for me," Emma said, her voice wavering, "through heartbreaks and celebrations." The cowboy nodded, digging deeper, pulling the earth away effortlessly. "I understand. I lost my dog not too long ago. Name was Tex." The shared pain echoed between them like a soft song of understanding. As they worked side by side, Emma felt the weight of her grief begin to ease. It was as if she wasn't carrying this burden alone anymore. Each clump of soil removed seemed to lift a little of the weight off her shoulders. With every story exchanged, they began weaving a bond through the fabric of their shared experiences. Emma told him about the time Rusty had dug up her favorite shoes, proudly prancing around the yard with them in his mouth. The cowboy chuckled at the image, sharing his own stories about Tex's escapades. Those often ended with him sheepishly returning home, wagging his tail as if to say he was sorry. Time seemed to dissolve as they dug, shadows growing longer, the sun dipping lower on the horizon. They laughed, cried, and remembered, each moment stitching together their hearts in both sorrow and joy. Finally, with just a few more shovels of dirt, they reached the depth needed for Rusty. The cowboy stepped back slightly, allowing Emma to kneel beside her pet one last time. The air grew heavy with unspoken emotions as she gently ran her fingers through his fur, remembering his warmth, the way he would curl up beside her on the couch. "Goodbye, my sweet boy," she whispered, her heart breaking anew. "Thank you for everything." The cowboy lifted Rusty gently and helped her lower him into the ground, treating the moment with the sacredness it deserved. With every handful of earth they placed over him, it felt as though they were wrapping him in love that would linger, even in absence. When the last bit of dirt settled, they stood side by side, the sky now a canvas of deep purples and fiery reds. Emma gazed down at the grave, feeling the weight of her grief transform into something resembling peace. "You did good," the cowboy said softly. Turning to him, she felt a warmth grow in her heart that she hadn't expected. "Thank you for being here." The cowboy tipped his hat back, a gentle smile gracing his face. "Sometimes we all need a little help, even when we think we don't," he replied, his tone earnest. As the last light of day faded, leaving stars to sprinkle across the night sky, a sense of hope began to bloom in her spirit. Buried along with Rusty was not only her sadness but also a reminder of the love they had shared. And in that moment, she understood that grief could coexist with joy. Asked, curiosity shining through the remnants of her sorrow. "More often than not," he replied. "Life's hard enough without carrying it alone." She took a step back, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Just passing it on," he said, a hint of pride coloring his voice. The cowboy turned, leading his horse back toward the path that cut through the fields. A warm breeze rustled the grass, and as Emma stood there, she felt a flicker of something she hadn't in a while: hope. He called back, looking over his shoulder. She hesitated for just a moment, considering the unexpected offer. "I would love that," she replied, a smile spreading across her face. As they mounted the horse together, she felt an electric thrill course through her. The night wrapped around them, the stars twinkling like tiny beacons of light against the dark canvas above. The horse moved gentle and steady beneath them, and with each beat of hooves, she felt burdens lifting off her soul. Riding through the fields under the blanket of stars, Emma grasped the feeling of freedom. The wind caressed her face, filling her lungs, and she could almost hear Rusty's bark echoing in the distance, urging her to live boldly. She asked, trying to engage him further, wanting to keep this moment alive. "Whenever I can," the cowboy replied, glancing back with a grin. They rode in comfortable silence, the bond between them growing stronger. She found herself sharing more stories, laughing at the small joys and recounting the quirks that made Rusty so unique. The cowboy listened intently, nodding, as if he truly understood what each tale meant to her. At last, they reached the outskirts of her small home. Emma could see her house silhouetted against the night. A strange mix of emotions swelled within her. The journey had been a blend of heartbreak and healing, and she felt grateful for every moment. As they dismounted, she turned toward him, her heart full. "I don't think I can express how much today has meant to me," she said, her voice steady yet soft. "You've got strength in you more than you realize," he replied, tipping his hat once again. She asked, a hopeful note creeping into her voice. He paused, the moonlight reflecting in his eyes. "I'll be around, just look for a cowboy willing to lend a shovel," he said, allowing a smile to play on his lips. With that, he climbed back onto his horse, and as he rode off into the night, she watched his figure fade into the darkness, yet his words lingered like a gentle echo against the vast silence. Standing at her doorstep, Emma felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her, mingled with sadness but also with hope. She would carry Rusty with her always, not as an ache in her heart but as a part of her story, a story that continued to unfold, filled with love and new beginnings. As she stepped inside her home, the familiar surroundings wrapped around her like a comforting embrace. Life would go on, she knew that now. It was a journey marked by love and loss, where healing awaited around each corner. Tonight, she no longer felt alone. The memories of Rusty danced in her heart, and there was a new understanding in her spirit, one that embraced the fullness of life in all its complexities. Tomorrow would come, filled with new adventures and opportunities, and she was ready to greet it with open arms. No longer bound by the weight of her grief, Emma stepped boldly into the future, ready to live the vibrant life that Rusty had always believed she could. The sun hung low in the sky, golden rays filtering through the trees, illuminating a secluded patch of earth, her sanctuary and now a grave. Emma knelt on the dirt, shaking hands, gripping the spade, heart heavy with grief. Just a few feet away lay Rusty, her golden retriever, the faithful companion who had filled her life with joy. Today, all that joy felt extinguished, weighed down by an unbearable silence. As she dug, each scoop of earth felt monumental, a reminder of finality. Memories washed over her, Rusty running through the fields, his joyous barks echoing in the air, his warm, furry body curled up beside her on lazy afternoons. But with each scrape of the shovel against the soil, the reality of what she was doing crashed over her like a wave. Tears streamed down her cheeks, mixing with the dirt, and she paused, burying her face in her hands. She had wanted to do this alone, to say goodbye in her own way. But the solitude felt crushing, as if the weight of the world was pressing down on her. That's when she heard footsteps, the crunch of boots on grass, heavy and deliberate. She looked up, startled to see a figure approaching with a purposeful stride. It was a cowboy, tall and rugged, dressed in worn jeans and a dusty hat. His figure contrasted starkly against the serene landscape, casting a long shadow as he drew near. He asked, his voice cutting through the haze of sorrow, deep and soothing. "No, I can do this myself," she replied, the defensiveness spilling out before she even realized it. Anger bubbled beneath her grief, igniting a protective instinct over her pain. This was hers to bear. "Looks to me like you could use some help," he countered, stopping just a few feet away. His eyes held a steady gaze, tender yet assertive, as if he recognized the storm swirling inside her. Emma hesitated, the tension pulling at her chest. For a moment she considered sending him away, but the exhaustion overwhelmed her fiery reply. Maybe he was right. Maybe she didn't need to shoulder this alone. With a reluctant sigh, she finally nodded, handing him the shovel. The transfer felt both liberating and unsettling, like releasing an anchor that had connected her too tightly to her sorrow. The cowboy stepped beside her, taking the shovel with ease, and began to dig. Each scoop was methodical, steady, and somehow it made the air feel lighter. He asked as he kept digging, his focus unwavering. "Rusty," Emma replied, her voice trembling. She fought against the wave of memories, a flood of warmth crashing against the icy reality of loss. "Rusty, sounds like a good dog," he said, looking up briefly. A bittersweet smile broke through Emma's tears. He really did. The cowboy nodded, digging deeper as if to unearth not just the soil but also her hidden sorrow. "I lost my dog a few years back, named Tex." There was an understanding in the air, a shared acknowledgement of what it meant to love and lose. With every scoop of dirt, Emma felt the tension between them dissipate. Her pain didn't vanish, but it felt lighter, as if she were no longer alone in carrying it. As they worked, Emma shared stories about Rusty, the way he would prance around, tail wagging, when she returned home from a long day, how he would curl up next to her with his head on her lap during quiet evenings. The cowboy chuckled softly at her anecdotes, occasionally sharing memories of Tex, the way he had always managed to flirt with disaster yet return looking innocent, his tail wagging defiantly. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of pink and purple. They moved in a rhythm, the sound of the shovel breaking the silence, pulling them out of their grief, if only for a moment. "Thank you," Emma found herself saying, her voice steadier now. "You don't need to thank me. Sometimes we just need to be there for one another," he replied, locking eyes with her. There was depth in his gaze, wisdom born from experience. Finally, they finished digging, the hole looking both small and vast at the same time. Emma knelt by Rusty's side, the weight of her heart pressing down on her. How could she say goodbye to a piece of her soul? "He was more than just a dog," she whispered, her fingers brushing through his fur one last time. The cowboy stepped back, allowing her private moment. She took a breath, steadying herself, wiping away her tears. Then they both gently lifted Rusty and placed him into the earth. Each movement felt reverent, as if they were bestowing a gift of love and memory, offering him a final home. As they began to cover him with dirt, every handful felt like a release. A part of her grief settled with each clod of earth, transforming sorrow into a soft farewell. The cowboy worked alongside her, his presence a comforting balm. "I hope he knows how much he was loved," Emma murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "Love never truly dies," he replied softly, pausing for a moment to let his words sink in. As the last bit of soil fell into place, Emma felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. They stood together, staring at the small grave, the moonlight softly illuminating its gentle rise and fall. It was a painful but beautiful creation, a testament to a life well lived. "You did well today," the cowboy said. "He knew you loved him." Emma turned to him, feeling the warmth of gratitude rise in her chest. "Thank you for being here. None of us should have to face it alone," he replied, tipping his hat back slightly. The shadows deepened as they stepped back from the grave, and Emma felt a lightness in her heart that hadn't been there before. The night seemed alive, filled with stars twinkling overhead, each one a reminder that even in grief, moments of beauty could exist. She asked, curious about the cowboy who had unknowingly changed the course of her day. "Yeah, it's part of my life," he said, shrugging slightly. "I ride around these parts finding folks who need a hand." "You make it sound so simple," she replied, feeling an upward swell of hope. "It is simple, really. Just being present can make a world of difference," he said, his eyes reflecting the starlight. As they spoke, Emma realized that she had gained more than just an ally in her grief. She had found a connection that felt almost magical, a bridge spanning their shared experiences. In a world often filled with chaos, it felt grounding to know that kindness still existed. As the night grew deeper, the cowboy glanced at the path leading away from the grave. "You want to ride home?" A shiver of excitement ran through her. They mounted the horse together, and as it began to trot, a rush of exhilaration coursed through her. It felt as if they were moving past the shadows of grief into a realm of possibility. The wind tousled her hair as they rode, the world around them blurring into a beautiful canvas of darkness and stars. She asked, trying to keep the conversation alive, feeling a sense of warmth growing between them. "I've been around. There's a freedom out here that you can't find in the city," he said, glancing back at her. "That sounds nice," she mused. As they trotted along, she began sharing more, her dreams stifled by the weight of grief, her hopes anchoring her in the present. The cowboy listened, nodding occasionally, his presence both reassuring and energizing. "I know it's hard," he said after a moment, "but don't let loss pin you down. Rusty wouldn't want that for you." His words ignited something deep inside her, a flicker of life that had dimmed in the wake of loss. The time spent with Rusty had formed her into who she was, but maybe, just maybe, there was space in her life for new adventures and connections too. Finally, they reached her little house, its silhouette framed softly against the night sky. She dismounted slowly, her heart filled with gratitude as she looked at the cowboy. "Thank you for today." He offered a warm smile, and for a fleeting moment their eyes locked, the unspoken understanding passing between them. You don't always know what to expect from life. With that, he tipped his hat once more, mounting his horse. As he rode away, Emma stood watching him disappear into the night, feeling the warmth of his spirit linger in the air. She was left with more than just the memories of Rusty. She had gained a new perspective. Life was not just about holding on to the past, but also about embracing what lies ahead. Turning back to her house, she felt the shadows of grief still lingering but mixed with something new. Hope. The stars twinkled above, a promise of brighter days to come. She would carry Rusty with her always, his love imprinted in her heart, yet she was prepared to venture into the world anew. In that moment, Emma understood that healing would take time, but surrounding herself with kindness and connection could illuminate the path forward. The journey was just beginning, and with every step, she felt alive again, ready to embrace whatever came next. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a somber warmth over the small, peaceful farm. Emma knelt beside a freshly dug grave, the earth piled high beside her like a mountain of grief. Her hands trembled as they gripped the worn handle of a shovel, every muscle aching with the weight of sorrow and exhaustion. Just a few feet away lay Rusty, her golden retriever, the beloved friend who had been her constant companion through the whirlwind of life. As she scraped the shovel against the ground, each time it squeaked like a painful reminder of her reality. The finality of it all suffocated her. Rusty was gone, but the memories assaulted her senses like sharp daggers. She remembered his joyful bark, the way he would bound through the fields, a golden blur of happiness. But that happiness was now buried under layers of soil and sorrow. Emma paused, wiping the sweat off her brow with the back of her hand and letting out a shaky breath. The world felt surreal, as if she were moving through a dream that had twisted into a nightmare. She'd wanted to keep this farewell intimate, a sacred goodbye, just the two of them. But the overwhelming grief threatened to pull her under. It was then that she heard footsteps in the grass, heavy and deliberate. Startled, Emma looked up, squinting against the sun as a figure emerged from the shadows. A cowboy, tall and broad-shouldered, strode toward her with an air of quiet confidence, sun-kissed skin and a dusty hat shielding his eyes. He called, the deep timbre of his voice slicing through the still air like a clean blade. She snapped, startled by the intrusion, her words sharper than intended. The cowboy didn't react defensively. Instead, he remained steady, his gaze unwavering. "I can see you're hurting." Emma's heart raced, and she felt a flicker of anger mixed with the aching sadness. She didn't want pity. This was her moment. He took a step closer, bringing with him an undeniable calm. "That dog loved you." Her defenses weakened, and the weight of her grief began to tug at her heart, urging her to relent. Maybe she didn't have to carry this alone. With a heavy sigh, she nodded, slowly handing him the shovel, her fingers brushing against his. The transfer felt like stepping from shadow into light, a shared understanding passing between them. As he took the shovel, there was a gentle determination in his grip. She watched as he began to dig, his movements smooth and purposeful. The scrape of metal against dirt danced with the rhythm of her pulse. It was strangely comforting to have someone there, even as they both faced the same ache. The cowboy asked, as the sun dipped lower on the horizon, painting the landscape in shades of gold and crimson. "Rusty," Emma replied, her voice shaking as she attempted to fight back tears. "He was my everything." "Sounds like he had a spirit about him," he said, throwing another scoop of dirt aside. Her heart tightened. She felt the dam inside her start to crack, allowing memories to spill forth. Rusty had been there through dark nights filled with tears and days when the sun felt like it would never shine again. The cowboy glanced at her, his expression softening. "I lost my dog a couple of years ago. His name was Tex. He was a handful, always getting into trouble, but he was my buddy." There was a connection forged in that moment. It was as if their shared sorrow built a delicate bridge, one that transcended words. "I'm sorry for your loss," Emma said, the sincerity of her sentiment wrapping around them like a cozy blanket. "Thank you," the cowboy replied, his eyes betraying the sadness hidden beneath his tough exterior. "It's hard saying goodbye." As they dug, the sun continued its descent. The shadows stretched longer, and the emotional distance between them began to shrink. Each scoop of dirt was propelled by shared stories and laughter, lightening the burden in her heart. Emma recounted tales of Rusty's playful antics, how he loved to steal socks and chase after squirrels, the way he'd nuzzle her when she was sad. Tex used to steal my lunch right off the table and then act like he didn't know what had happened, the cowboy chimed in, a smile breaking through the pain. The delight in his voice resonated with her, a soothing balm to their collective wounds. They worked side by side until the grave was nearly ready. Emma knelt down beside Rusty one last time, her heart aching as reality settled heavy on her shoulders. "You were the best, buddy," she whispered, running her fingers through his soft fur. A lump formed in her throat as she fought to keep her composure. The cowboy paused nearby, offering her the space to grieve. She wiped her tears, blinking against the wellspring of sadness. With a deep breath, she turned to him. "Absolutely," he replied, his voice unwavering. With care, they lifted Rusty from the ground, and as they placed him in the shallow grave, it felt like they were offering him to the earth itself, a final resting place where his spirit could run free. As they shoveled the earth back over him, the act became a ceremony of love, each clump of dirt grounding them further, anchoring the memories of their lost companions. Every scoop felt like a release, and the soothing silence turned into a soft murmur of shared understanding. Emma caught herself glancing at the cowboy, appreciating the way he respected the moment, treating it with the reverence it deserved. With the last handful of dirt in place, Emma stepped back, the weight of grief shifting into something that resembled peace. "It's hard to say goodbye," she whispered, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Goodbyes are never easy," he agreed, pausing to allow the moment to settle. "But love never really goes away." In that quiet moment, they stood together by the grave under the expansive sky, the first stars beginning to twinkle above them. The air felt charged with something electric, a reminder that life continued even amid loss. "Thank you for everything," Emma said, gratitude overflowing in her voice. "This is what it's all about," the cowboy replied quietly, "helping each other through the tough times." As the sun retreated, the cool evening air wrapped around them a comforting shroud. Emma felt a sense of calm wash over her, a flicker of hope igniting within. The cowboy looked at her, eyes earnest beneath the brim of his hat. He asked, nodding toward his horse tethered nearby. Surprise coursed through her veins, glimmering with excitement. They mounted the horse together, and as it began to move, a rush of exhilaration coursed through her. The wind whipped through her hair, and Emma closed her eyes for a fleeting moment, savoring the freedom that exhilarated her spirit. They rode through the evening, the landscape a blur of soft colors, fields of wildflowers, the gentle undulations of the land illuminated by the moonlight. It felt as though the shadows of her grief were slowly lifting, carried away by the wind. She asked, wanting to keep the conversation flowing. "Whenever I get the chance," he replied, a grin on his face. "There's something special about being out here, just you and the land." Emma listened intently, feeling a sense of warmth curling inside her chest. "Life has its way of testing us," he said, casting a glance back at her. "But you'll find your way through it." His words resonated deeply. They reminded her that while loss was a part of life, so were connections and love. As they continued riding under the starlit sky, that spark of hope ignited into a warm glow, illuminating the path forward. Eventually, they reached her small house, the familiar silhouette welcoming her home. Dismounting from the horse, she turned to him, the weight of gratitude palpable. "Thank you for everything today. I didn't know I needed this," she said, voice filled with emotion. "Life can surprise us," he replied, tipping his hat back again with a soft smile. As he hopped back onto his horse to leave, Emma felt an unexpected pang in her chest. She dared to ask. "Count on it," he replied confidently, riding off into the night, the silhouette of the cowboy slowly disappearing into the horizon. Standing at her doorstep, Emma felt a wave of introspection wash over her. The events of the day lingered in her mind, entwined with emotions both heavy and freeing. Rusty would always be a part of her, climbing walls of memory and holding her heart. But today had revealed the power of connection, of shared experiences in the tapestry of grief. As the stars twinkled above, Emma made her way inside, embracing the warmth of her home. Life would continue, and with every breath, she would carry the love of Rusty, both the sweet memories and the lessons he had imparted. There was a world out there, waiting for her to reclaim her joy, and she was ready. Riding through her grief would become a part of her story, not an end but a beginning. With a gentle spirit guiding her, she would walk further into the light, ready to embrace the beauty of each moment. The future awaited, and Emma was prepared to meet it head-on. The sun dipped low on the horizon, spilling streaks of orange and pink across the sky, casting long shadows across the field. Emma knelt next to a freshly dug hole, her heart heavy with a grief she never wanted to experience. Each scoop of dirt she moved felt monumental as she prepared a final resting place for Rusty, her loyal dog who had been her companion and confidant. The earth was cold against her fingers, a stark contrast to the warmth of the love they had shared. She paused, tears blurring her vision, as memories washed over her like waves crashing against the shore. Rusty's joyful barks, the way he would chase after squirrels with reckless abandon, the comforting moments on the couch where his head rested on her lap, those memories twisted in her heart, tightening like a vice. There was a finality in what she was doing that felt cruel and overwhelming. She whispered to the wind, hoping someone out there could hear her. Just then she heard footsteps crunching through the grass, heavy and deliberate. Startled, she looked up, squinting against the fading light. A figure emerged from the shadows, a cowboy, tall and strong, with a weathered hat casting a shadow over his face. His jeans were dusty, his boots worn, and he moved toward her with a quiet confidence. He asked, the deep timbre of his voice cutting through the heavy air. "No, I can do it myself," she snapped, energy flaring up, sharp and defensive. This was her moment, her grief, and she felt an instinct to shield it from any intrusion. He took a half step closer, his tone softening. "Looks to me like you could use some help." His words hung in the air, and something in their sincerity tugged at her heart. She hesitated, caught between her desire for solitude and an unspoken prayer for connection. She wanted to be brave and handle this burden alone, but the weight of her sorrow pressed down so heavily. With a reluctant sigh, she finally nodded and handed him the shovel. As he took it from her, their fingers brushed for a moment, sending a ripple of unexpected warmth through her. He began to dig beside her, the rhythm steady and calming. He asked, his eyes focused on the ground. "Rusty," she replied, the name caught in her throat like a bittersweet melody. "He was. Sounds like a good dog," he said, not looking up but sensing the weight of her loss. "Dogs have a way of giving their all." His words resonated deeply as she felt the sharp pang of loss transforming into something different, a sense of shared experience, a connection that ignited a flicker of hope in her heart. "Rusty was my rock," she admitted, feeling the tears swell as they began to share stories about their respective pets. Rusty had been with her through every heartbreak, every moment of uncertainty, a furry beacon of loyalty. The cowboy chuckled, a richness in his voice. "I had a dog named Tex. He would run off, find trouble, and always come back with that devilish grin." "Sounds like a handful," Emma replied, wiping her eyes and offering a faint smile amidst her tears. "Yeah, but he was family," he said, glancing up for a moment. As the sun dipped lower, they continued to dig, the shadows stretching behind them like lives unwritten. Each scoop of dirt turned into shared laughter, and the boundaries of her grief began to soften like ice melting in the spring. The cowboy laughed robustly. "Tex once ate an entire pie left on the windowsill. He just couldn't help himself. Came back to me with a face full of blueberry." Their shared stories filled the empty space around them, stitching little pieces of their hearts together with laughter and warmth. The air, which had felt so dense a moment ago, now felt lighter, buoyed by the camaraderie of shared loss. Finally, they reached a depth that felt right. Emma dropped to her knees beside Rusty, tears spilling freely now. "You were my best friend, Rusty," she whispered, her voice breaking. The cowboy stood back, giving her the space she needed, but not disappearing from her side. The presence of this stranger felt comforting, as if he understood just how heavy this moment was. She bit her lip, holding in a sob as she took a deep breath. "You were always there, always protecting me." With a shuddering sigh, she looked at the cowboy. "Absolutely," he assured her, stepping closer to help. Together, they gently placed Rusty in the grave, treating the act with the kind of tenderness that belied the sorrow flooding her heart. Each movement felt sacred, like an unspoken promise that he would always be remembered. As they laid the earth over him, Emma's heart ached more deeply than she had thought possible, yet each handful of dirt felt like letting go of a weight she had carried for too long. They filled the hole slowly, deliberately. Each clod of earth felt like an expression of love, as if they were embracing Rusty one final time. With the last scoop of dirt placed, silence enveloped them. She took a step back, blinking against the tears that still flowed freely. The cowboy stood beside her, a comforting presence in the darkness that was beginning to settle around them. "You did well today," he said softly, looking out over the grave. He knew he was loved. "I didn't expect to find someone like you today," Emma admitted, the weight of her heart feeling both heavier and lighter at the same time. "Sometimes life hands us a few surprises, even when we're lost," he replied, turning to her with a warm smile. As the last of the light faded, stars began to shimmer in the night sky like eyes watching over them. There was a beauty to the moment, and a flicker of hope sparked within Emma's heart. Perhaps loss didn't mean the end. Perhaps it was a door leading to something new. "Thank you for being here," she said sincerely. He smiled, tipping his hat back slightly. No one should ever have to face such things alone. Just then, as if to punctuate their moment, a low rumble echoed in the distance. Clouds rolled in, dark and ominous, gathering above them. Emma squinted, noticing the winds pick up, rustling the leaves threateningly around them. "Looks like a storm is rolling in," the cowboy said, glancing upward. Emma felt a shiver run through her. "I think we should get inside," she said, suddenly aware of the chill in the air. The atmosphere felt charged, electrified, as if nature itself was holding its breath. He took a step back toward his horse, his demeanor shifting slightly. As they made their way, the air thickened and Emma glanced at him, a question dancing on her lips. "Why do you help people?" He paused, looking her in the eyes with an intensity that sent another shiver down her spine. "Sometimes we're meant to be in the right place at the right time. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves we're not alone." Just as they approached her house, a flash of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by a thunderous roar, the ground shaking beneath them. Emma clutched her stomach, feeling a sudden wave of unease wash over her. "Stay close," the cowboy urged, but the wildness in the air felt more than just a looming storm. The ground trembled again, this time more violently as Emma glanced back, spotting a dark figure looming in the distance, a wild silhouette moving against the backdrop of twisted trees. Heart racing, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, something more than just the brewing storm. She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, I do," he replied, eyes narrowing. Before she could respond, the figure bolted forward, faster than she could process, a blur heading straight toward them. The cowboy instinctively stepped in front of her, protective and alert. Emma's heart raced, fear spiking as the dark figure drew nearer. As that figure closed in, she realized her worst fear was about to unfold. The flash of a predator, an animal on the hunt, surged toward them through the trees, and she froze, breath caught in her throat. Just as the creature lunged from the edge of the woods, Emma tightened her grip on the cowboy's arm. It was now or never. What happened next would change everything. Both their lives entwined in a moment of sheer instinct and raw desperation. She braced herself, wondering if they were prepared for whatever storm was about to explode in their lives. The thunder crashed above, drowning out her racing thoughts, but the real question lingered. Would they be able to face this together? That pivotal moment was just a breath away, hovering between certainty and fear, on the brink of defining their fates forever.